Good day, Alden. I am on my way walking to the sauna, so I decided I would record you your story while I'm walking and kill two birds with one stone, or fart two turds with one butt, however you want to look at it. Now, just as a reminder, the items that you picked, there were four, were my butt, and I don't know if you meant your butt or my butt. I'm going to do your butt. The yellow kissy face pillow, a Minecraft bow with punch too, and a farting watermelon. So, I'm going to keep this list out because here we go. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Crackle. And Crackle lived with a carny. And as you may know, a carny is somebody who works at a carnival. And Crackle, his dad was the headmaster of the whole carnival. So he got to see everything. He got to see the lady who had giant muscles and a beard. He got to see the dancing tiger. He got to see the elephants that could shoot water balloons out of their trunks and blast all of the people in the crowd. And he also got to see how tiring and frustrating it was going from town to town, setting up your carnival, working for a few days, a week maybe two, tearing it all down and moving on to the next city. It was hard to make friends. It was really hard to, have like a normal school situation. And mostly the people you knew were those who worked at the carnival. So one night, Crackle was sitting inside of the main carnival tent watching the show that he had seen 1,000 times when he decided to leave and explore a little bit. And so it was just going to be the part of the show where they brought out the famous farting watermelon, which was actually the finale of the whole carnival, because everybody had tigers that would jump through hoops and elephants, but this strange man had found a watermelon that for some reason it didn't rot, and it had something shaped like a little butt on it, and it would totally fart for the crowd on command. It could do it basically an unlimited amount of times. So that was the crowd favorite, and they always got the most applause there, and they passed around a tip bucket. So they wheeled the watermelon out into the center of the tent, and they, kind of hyped everybody up to see it, and it started farting everywhere. It was really gross. And that was when Crackle decided to escape, because his father had always said he had to stay in the tent and watch the show every night so that he could see how to run the business. Because running a carnival was a very, very tricky business. All sorts of things could go wrong. An animal could get hurt or run away or even eat somebody. The farting watermelon might not fart, and then you have to figure out how to make it right for the crowd and improvise. If you have people in the crowd who were causing problems and throwing rocks, you have to deal with them. So he wanted Crackle to watch every show. Anyway, once the crowd started roaring and laughing, Crackle decided that would be when he snuck out. So he crept silently out of the tent, outside, into the rest of the carnival. And there were still people doing the rest of the carnival. Not everybody watched the main show. There was people throwing popping water balloons with darts. There were people trying to win stuffed animals by throwing baseballs and breaking plates. All the usual stuff, all the good stuff. So Crackle said, I've never really played a carnival game. I'm going to go try. And so he found a stand. It was a ring toss. And he rummaged around in his pocket, and he had $5 because he didn't get paid much because he was just a kid. And so he knew the person who worked there. It was his friend Jameson, who was, he was like a 25-year-old uncle guy. And he said, Jameson, how many times can I throw this for $5? And Jameson said, Crackle, for you can throw it 25. You can throw 25 rings. And Crackle thought, easy peasy, I can totally do this. So he tossed the first ring, and it totally looked like it was going to land on top of a bottle. And then it ricocheted off and flew out. And Crackle said, how is this possible? And Jameson said, it's just a trick of the trade. We can't let somebody win every time. And so Crackle threw, 23 more of the rings. and they all bounced off or just completely missed. And he was getting kind of upset, and he said a few words that a kid his age should not say. But, Jameson made sure to correct him on that. And finally, he threw his 25th one, and it landed, and he started cheering and went, yeah! And Crackle said, well, what prize do I get, Jameson? And Jameson said, you can choose to any of these. And he pointed to a shelf where there was some rather lame prizes, to be honest. But one of them was a yellow circular pillow with a kissy face on it. And Crackle decided to get that one. And he thought it was cute, and it was just what he wanted. So he took it, and then he started exploring around the carnival even more. And that's when he walked by the booth that he had never very much cared for. It was the booth that had the strangest butt in the world. And so there was this kid named Alden Ray. And legend has it that he moved into a house when he was 7 years old. And for some reason, that house was filled with radioactive toxic waste. And for some reason, it got into his butt. And it made his butt get really big. To where it was like 10 times the size of a normal man's butt. And so he couldn't walk, he couldn't ride a bike, he couldn't even fit into a car. Really, all he could do was be part of the carnival. So he walked by the booth, and there was a bunch of people staring and laughing at the butt. And then Alden was on the other side going, stop laughing at my butt or I'll fart on you. And then when they laughed, he would kind of toot and everybody would laugh. And, fortunately, Alden was a wonderful person who didn't let his circumstances make him feel down. Anyway, Crackle kept walking, and he noticed something that he didn't normally notice. Towards the edge of the carnival and the circus grounds, there was this one light that always flickered on and off, and they never bothered to replace it because really all it did was mark kind of the off-limits area where the people who worked at the carnival lived. And he saw some people over there, like unexpected, kind of strange people. They were wearing these dark cloaks, and they were whispering furtively to each other. And Crackle thought that was really strange, so he hid the kissy face pillow, the yellow kissy face pillow, under his shirt, and he crept behind a tent and got as close as he could to that light, and then got on the ground and crawled closer and finally hid under a bush. And he heard these people going, he's got the bow. I know he's got the bow. If we get that bow, we'll be rich. And Crackle thought, the heck? What is he talking about? What bow? How are they going to get rich? And the other man said, how do we know the bow's real? It could be just a legend. History is filled with legends. And the other man said, someone saw it. He has a traitor in his midst. There's someone who wants to take over the carnival from him. And Crackle thought, whoa. They're talking about my dad. My dad has a bow? I've never seen a bow. And then he assumed he meant like a bow from an archer and not the kind of bow maybe you would use to play music or a ribbon bow. But he wasn't sure. Maybe it was also a very special ribbon bow. Regardless, Crackle listened to their conversation, and it was not very interesting. It was mostly them talking about whether the bow was real. But then finally, the tallest man, who seemed to have the biggest cloak, almost seemed as if there was a glow coming from under his hood, said, we're going to go in 30 minutes. You two distract the carnival leader, and we'll break into his carnival cart wagon, and we will steal the bow. And if it is not there, we'll just take the money and anything else he has. And they all nodded to each other, shook hands, and agreed. And then they disappeared into the darkness. And Crackle thought, 30 minutes, oh crap, I gotta go warn my dad. So he ran back to the tent, but the show was still going. The watermelon was still farting. Apparently, it was doing like rapid fire turbo farts and spinning around in circles, something it had actually never done. So the crowd was transfixed. They were mesmerized. It was beautiful. It was amazing. But that meant Crackle could not run and get his father because his father was still out in the center of the ring. And if he did that, he would alert the crazy people. And so he realized, all right, I got to do something. So he ran to the booth. The stall of the man whose trick was putting a sword down his throat. And to be fair, it was a trick sword. He wasn't actually eating a sword, but the idea had always grossed Crackle out. So Crackle went to that man whose name was Murphy, And he said, Murphy, look, do you have a real sword? One that actually is sharp and doesn't fold up when you put it in your mouth? And he said, well, I do. It's like something my grandfather gave me, and I don't want to use it in my act. Why do you ask? And Crackle said, well, I want to use it for something. I have to protect something of my dad's, and, I just want to be super safe. And Murphy, not knowing that there was an actual risk, thought he was, playing an imagination-based game. And he said, okay, sure. Yeah, we'll do that. No problem. So Crackle grabbed the sword, which was actually pretty heavy, and it was almost as tall as he was. It was a long sword with blades on both sides, sharpened blades on both sides. And he ran to his father's wagon. And, he was planning on using the sword if he had to. He didn't know if he could lift it. He didn't know if he could swing it. He certainly didn't believe that he could fight better than those cloaked hooligans who were going to be to the wagon in a mere 20 minutes. But he was ready because, his father had worked very hard for everything he had, and he trusted if his father had a bow, it was important. Maybe even part of the Carnival mission. Or mission, like maybe part of the Carnival success. Who knows? So he went in and, he knew he shouldn't have done this, but he did it anyway because he was so curious. He started looking around the wagon, and he found a box, a very nice dark oak box. It was polished, and it had 3 locks on it, and they didn't look like the highest quality locks, so he did something he was ashamed of and would get in trouble for later, mind you. He chopped the locks off with the sword. He lifted the row up. He lifted the lid up, and inside was a bow. Now, the weird thing was, this was not a regular bow. If you've ever played the game Minecraft, it was a bow from Minecraft, blocks and all. And he picked it up and lifted it, and it had no weight, and it felt really weird, like it did not belong in this dimension. And it occurred to him that it was a Minecraft bow. And when he looked at it the right way, this little text in white would have just appear over the bow, and it said, Punch 2 enchantment. And he thought, gosh, I really wonder what a Punch 2 enchantment is. And so he picked it up, and he ran outside of the wagon. And when he got outside, he actually crawled underneath the wagon because it was really tall and had tall wagon wheels. And he hid under there and waited. And so after a while, the 3 cloaked guys, they came in. They were really sneaking, creepy. They were putting out lights as they got close. They were actually super stealthy. And they got there, and they opened the door, went inside, and he could hear the sounds of them rummaging around. And then he heard swearing and cursing when they realized that the open box was sitting right on the floor and that somebody had taken it. And the leader came out and stormed out and said, which one of you took this? Which one of you told? And one of them said, I swear I didn't do it. And the other said, we didn't, we were with you. And he said, yes, well, how did this happen? And unfortunately, that is when Crackle had a stinging flying ant fly into his nose, sting the inside of his nose, which triggered a series of 7 sneezes that he couldn't stop. He tried so hard to stop, but he couldn't. It didn't work. And so, immediately, all 4 of the sketchy fellows surrounded the wagon while the leader bent down and looked underneath and said, well, hello there, boy. I believe you have something that belongs to us. And Crackle said, well, the cotton candy's over on the first tent. And the person said, we don't want cotton candy. Give us what's ours. And Crackle said, I don't know what you're talking about. And the man said, I can see the bow laying right next to you. Give it to us. And then the wind gusted up. A storm was coming. And the hood of the leader got pushed back. And Crackle was very, very shocked to see that the man's head was a square. And he had recalled seeing his friend play Minecraft. And his friend called this character a witch. And Crackle went, oh my God. And so he grabbed the bow. And the weird thing was, when he grabbed the bow, an arrow just appeared on the string. And he pulled the bow back and he fired it. And it went thunk, and it flew into the man. But the weird thing was, the arrow didn't pierce him and make him bleed or anything. It knocked him backwards 15 feet. And the man went, ah, get him! And so Crackle ran out of the opening where the leader guy, the leader villain, whatever thief had been standing. And he ran, and they were chasing him, and he turned around and shot one with an arrow, shot the other with an arrow, shot the other with an arrow, and they got knocked back 15 feet. And so they kept trying to run at him, and every time they would, he would shoot them back, and they'd get knocked back farther. And they were getting pretty mad, because at this point, Crackle was just sitting there and laughing, because for some reason, his aim was like supernaturally good. He'd never fired a bow, but he hit them every time. And so after a while, the leader said, "Halt!" And they all stopped, just out of the range of his bow, and they said, "We are going to find you, and we are going to destroy you." And then suddenly a voice from behind the wicked men said, "What did you say?" And then 3 really muscular men and a woman with a beard, a really long beard, approached. And they said, "Are you messing with one of our people?" And the wicked man pulled his cloak back over his head and said, "Yeah, what are you going to do about it?" And then the giant muscled man picked him up and literally smashed him like an accordion. And the man screamed, and then he went poof and disappeared. And there was 3 glowing orbs where his body would have been. And they went into the giant man and went ding, ding, ding. And then the bearded woman took out a strange sword that was shaped like a hook and chopped the other one down. And then the other guys, the 2 other muscle men dealt with the other 2 guys, and they were all gone. And Crackle said, "Oh, thank gosh you guys were here. Something really strange happened." And the giant man, whose name was Berg, approached and said, "Have you learned about the bow?" And Crackle said, "Yeah, I have it right here." And Berg said, "Well, we're not going to tell you what this means, but your father will tell you. You're going to have to wait for him. But we're going to take you back to his wagon, and we need you to be safe." And so they all escorted Crackle back to the wagon. But they didn't know was that when one of the evil villains died, he left behind a book that Crackle had picked up and stuck into his back pocket. And so Berg guided him inside and told him to sleep and that everything was okay. And then Berg and his companions, including the very short bearded woman, waited outside to guard him. And while they were waiting, Crackle opened the book, and he was very shocked to find what it said. It said, "Dear Marglin," which must have been the evil person, "why have you gone into this world, the fake world of the humans? We need you back in the real world. The marauders approach our castle. We cannot hold them off for long. We need you. We need you. Stop searching for that bow. It can't be real. Signed, Paragon." And Crackle thought that was really strange for a couple reasons. The first, that it appeared that the lead villain was trying to secure a weapon to protect his fortress from a battle they were losing. But the more interesting thing was the book had said that his world, where he lived, was not the real world. That confused him, and that scared him. And so he laid there for a while pondering that when his father came in, and his father told him to wait by the bed while he got ready. So his father brushed his teeth, or had a little dinner, brushed his teeth, and then came and sat by his bed and said, "Crackle, I'm very disappointed that you got this bow, but it is time that you knew." And Crackle said, "Knew what?" And his father said, "Well, our family does not come from this world. We come from another world. And roughly 50 years ago, and I say roughly because time is different in these worlds, we fled into this world because there was a great scourge of evil cleansing and killing everyone from our world. And we came here, and when we first came here, we looked very different from all the people here. We were square and we were blocky, and we didn't live or look the same. But over time, our bodies adapted to this world, and we started looking like regular people. And that bow is the last remaining possession I have from that world." And Crackle said, was Mother from that world?" And your father said, "Yes, she got left behind, and we don't know what happened to her, and we've never been able to make it back. The doorway we made between the 2 worlds got closed." And Crackle said, "But now it's open." And his father said, "But now it's open. Now you go to sleep, and we're going to figure out what to do about this. Do you have any questions?" Crackle said no, shook his head no, because too much had changed. He had no idea what to say or what to think or do about this. But he knew that the rest of his life was now going to be very different than it was before. And to be continued. That is the story of Crackle. And I believe I worked in the farting watermelon, the Minecraft bow, Alden's butt, and the kissy face pillow all into it. We will continue the story another time, the journeys of Crackle. Now, I want to tell you good night and I love you and I wish you were home, but I'm hoping you're having a really fun, really good night. And I am going to the sauna. So if you guys try to call me or anything, I won't be able to answer it probably for like an hour and a half. Good night. I love you, Alden.